everyone. Thanks for tuning in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is the third dose of your daily vitamins, your Saturday vitamins. So with that all being said, everyone please go ahead and like and share this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Be sure to click the notification bell, click the word all, so that you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. Okay, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur. Also, follow the Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur fan page and follow me on Twitter at DGoddess27. So everybody, let's get some fire emojis in the chat for Gavin, all right? Gavin Richardesq, who has joined us here, right? For not only to enlighten us with his legal expertise, but to talk about this case with Vincent Simmons, a Black man who was incarcerated for 44 years, and now he's been released. So we're going to talk about that. Okay, hello, sweet great mom, Trisha, Ayon, Pearly, Lee, Mark Ayers from the UK is Black, Shots on Target, Silent D. Okay, right. I see you, Gail. Shout out to everyone in the chat.
Yeah, go ahead, Gail. In the chat. Good morning, all. Lil Harv, I see you. Thank you for the shout out, Trisha. Thank you. Silent D Productions, I see you all the time on Twitter. I'm tagged in something all the time. He's posting something on there, so it's great to see familiar faces like Phantom Deep. I'm pretty sure Black Voltron will drop in soon, and some others. Yeah, so thank you for having me this morning, Queen. I appreciate it. So I guess we're going to get started talking about Mr. Simmons. Vincent Simmons, as I've talked about on my channel, be sure anyone who has not to subscribe to my YouTube channel, GBoot2786, or my backup channel, Gavin Richard. Vincent Simmons, as I did a special on him, part of my live stream Tuesday and Thursday, is a gentleman who was wrongfully convicted and spent 45 years in prison on an attempted aggravated rape charge. The sentence was for 100 years in prison, and Mr. Simmons did 44 years in prison at this time. Now, there's some interesting information a lot of people don't know about this case. For instance, they have been fighting to get him released for a long time. I believe one of the attorneys who is working on his case, he inherited the case from his late father, who was working to get Mr. Simmons out of prison. And this occurred in Marksville, Louisiana. So this is my home state, in Alvalade Parish, which is about 2 hours or hour and a half from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And Baton Rouge, Louisiana is about an hour and 20 minutes from New Orleans. Essentially, what's happening with that is that new evidence emerged. For instance, that question whether Mr. Simmons got a fair trial. For instance, he was photographed in front of the jury with his handcuffs and orange jumpsuit, which would be prejudicial. He was also tried in less than 60 days after the allegation was made, which means it was very quick. So within 60 days, he was tried and convicted. And other evidence that would have proved to be exculpatory, such as DNA evidence that proved that his DNA was not present on the victims, that would have exonerated him or at least aided in his defense, that was not presented at his trial. And as such, the district court judge, Judge Bennett, decided that he did not get a fair trial. William Bennett is the judge's name, and he threw out the conviction and granted him a new trial. But the district attorney, Charles Riddle, decided that he did not want to go forward with the trial as he spoke to the two victims, Sharon and Karen Sanders, or I should say alleged victims. So with that being said, Queen, excuse me, I'm the king. With that being said, I think you would want to play the video. Do you have some video footage of?
Yes. Okay. Let me go ahead. I'm going to pull that up.
Put that copyright disclaimer in the chat, please, so that we won't get any copyright strikes, guys. And Queen, where is this video coming from?
From the regular news, I think CBS or somebody. I use their stuff all the time.
Okay, because I have the local news here, which is WAFB, with the video on it, and they show the two women talking. But yeah, you go ahead and
show them on here too.
Okay, very well.
Okay. All right.
Welcome back to CBS Mornings. We have a big update today in the case of a man who has spent decades arguing he's been wrongly imprisoned. After more than 44 years, Vincent Simmons is now a free man. Yesterday, a judge ruled he had not received a fair trial back in 1977 when he was convicted of attempted aggravated rape. The decision is partly based on evidence that's been available for years. Our lead national correspondent, David Begnaud, recently sat down with Simmons' accusers, twins who were 14 years old back in 1977. Now he has spoken to Simmons. And David joins us from Angola, Louisiana. David, good morning. What incredible reporting.
Vlad, good morning to you. Hello, everyone. Listen, Vincent served 44 years here at Louisiana State Penitentiary, but he was supposed to serve 100. That was the sentence. For the last 30 or so years, he kept trying to tell judges, I didn't get a fair trial, and here's the information, and they just dismissed him left and right. Get out of here, get out of here. But yesterday, there was a judge who said to him, I believe that you did not get a fair trial. In fact, that judge's daddy, nearly 30 years ago, dismissed Vincent's attempt. But this judge said, your rights were denied, they were violated, and you get a fair trial. And we were there for all of it.
Vincent Simmons! Time to let him go, y'all. Vincent Simmons!
When the shackled Vincent Simmons arrived at the Avoyelles Parish Courthouse in a prison van, carrying a Bible, when his accusers, Karen and Sharon Sanders, the twins that he was convicted of sexually assaulting when they were 14 years old, walked to the courthouse, they paused to pray. Simmons had been in prison for 44 years and tried for most of that time to get his conviction overturned. You've done this 16 times, at least.
Yes.
So this would be 17.
Yes.
You think this will be the time?
Yes, sir.
We walked alongside Simmons as he was about to face a judge who had recently examined information that was available in 1977, but it was not presented at his trial. That was information that he and his attorneys believed may have changed his conviction for attempted aggravated rape. It took less than an hour for Judge Billy Bennett to say that there had been a lapse in Louisiana justice in 1977.
You free, bro. You free. You're free. Done.
And that Vincent Simmons deserves a new trial. And that is when the shackles came off of his feet. The district attorney said he will not retry Simmons.
I'm so happy to see you.
His accusers, Sharon and Karen Sanders, now 59 years old, decided to stand down.
He went in guilty. He's guilty now. And guess what? He will die guilty.
You ready?
So I'm
ready?
happy. Yeah. I got 44 years.
All right.
That's good.
What was that moment like for you when you realized that what the judge said meant
Wow.
you were a free man?
Yeah. It dawned on me. This is it. You know? Man, we've been waiting all these years for this.
You'll turn 70 on Thursday.
On Thursday.
Did you think you would die in prison?
Yes. And I had visions of the prison gates opening up. And I'm walking through them.
Are you mad at anyone?
No, I'm not mad.
So you're not mad at the women?
No. I'm not mad at them. I mean that. When I told them I forgive them, that's what I mean. Forgiveness.
The judge said several times on the bench, I do not know whether Mr. Simmons is innocent or guilty.
Right.
Does it bother you that you walk out of here a free man, but with the suspicion by some people that you may still be guilty?
Well, I still don't believe that, even though I'm out, just like people gonna be people. And some of them gonna say, oh, he's guilty, you know, despite the fact that they had no evidence.
But before he could be free, a remarkable thing happened. Louisiana prison officials required that the shackles go back on so he could go back to prison to be processed.
I'm just telling you, he's a free man.
And though his lawyer pushed back,
You can't be in jail tonight like that. That's not like that would not be a good thing.
The victory!
he would load up again and travel another 2 hours back to Louisiana State Penitentiary, the largest maximum security prison in the nation, where at sunset, Vincent Simmons walked out.
Oh, yeah.
of the place he has been held in since he was 25 years old.
Hey, man, I want to. Yeah.
The judge said on the bench yesterday, I want to be clear, I'm not telling you that Vincent Simmons is guilty or innocent. I'm just telling you he deserves a new trial. When the district attorney stood up almost immediately and said, Judge, we're not going to retry him, that meant the charges at that moment were dropped. When Vincent walked out of here last night, he said he wanted a crawfish dinner. So he got it. What's next for him? He says he wants to leave Louisiana and start again somewhere else.
Wow. Well, David, we can certainly understand that. Congratulations to you and your team for a lot of hard work here. There were a lot of people involved working on this case for a lot of years
That's Mark Moriel's wife.
Into the outside world as a free man. You mentioned he's free but not exonerated. So I do have a question. First of all, who met him there? He was hugging two ladies, and there were some cheers. I'm curious who was there. And also, is there any hope of restitution for the 44 years he paid for a crime he says he didn't commit?
His sisters and his attorney met him here, and there is hope, but it's going to be hard. The DA said he would essentially have to go to what is a trial and convince a judge that he can prove his innocence. Proving that he's innocent may be difficult, but when you say that he had a lot of help, Tony, it's important to note, every attorney who helped him was simply using the information that Vincent had obtained himself. Nobody believed Vincent when he stood up in front of a judge by himself, but he kept trying, and was expecting to die here in prison. But instead, after 44 years, he won.
Oh boy. Vincent Simmons is one of the lucky ones that was able to get out of prison. Now, someone had asked the question, can any actions be given? Someone had asked Queen, can any actions take place against the two women who lied? Why are they not prosecuted under federal report law? Well, under a false report law. Well, couple of things. You gotta. They were kids when they made these statements. They're claiming that this happened when they were 14 years old. So that is a factor. The other thing is, if they did perjure themselves, there could be, statute of limitations possibly and run out. Also, district attorney, and this is the reason why we at least should vote in elections, is that the district attorney is the one that determines whether charges will be prosecuted or not. Right. And I know a lot of DAs who will try some of them will try the most frivolous of cases just because they want to secure a conviction. And also it would mean, here's another thing. Cops lie all the time. There are people that they exaggerate their reports. So police officers, remember, they work in unison with the prosecutors, with the state prosecutors. So there's a conflict of interest that takes place when they do these cases. So that's another factor. Can he get restitution for it? It honestly just depends on the situation and what they could prove. As the gentleman has stated, if he has to prove his innocence, remember the district attorney gave that speech in court. Well, we have enough that he's evidence to show he's guilty, but we just don't want to retry the case. So they left that little caveat so he couldn't get restitution. That was my opinion on that. And remember, they did the same thing with a man here in New Orleans. I talked about this in my last live stream, Queen, where a black man was in prison on death row, and a week before he was on death row, it was found out on the deathbed of this ADA prosecutor that they withheld Brady evidence, which would have exonerated him. And he got a stay of execution. His conviction was overturned in less than a day, actually. And Harry Connick Sr., father of Harry Connick Jr., admitted, yes, I failed to educate my officers, my prosecuting attorneys, in turning over Brady evidence. And even though they did that, it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. He got millions of dollars restitution. And guess who gave the opinion to reverse that decision?
Who?
Uncle Clarence. Uncle Clarence Thomas reversed it.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Uncle Clarence reversed a decision that would have paid this man millions of dollars back in restitution. He said you get nothing. That case was John Thompson. So the suit was Harry Connick Jr. versus John Thompson, a 5-4 opinion. Now just interesting about Clarence Thomas. He has never, I think only since recently, he has sat on that bench and never said a word. He never asked a question in oral arguments, nothing. I find that to be interesting. In 20 years. And yes, he did right. Get out of the state. You gave Louisiana 44 years of your life. You go to somewhere else. Go to the north. Go to Canada for all I care. Like Malcolm X said, if you're south of the Canadian border, you're in the South. Go somewhere else, brother. But yeah, I know people were upset with the forgiveness talk. Maybe it could be the heat of the moment. He's exonerated and just wants to let it go. But I'm sorry.
I think it's religious beliefs that make him be so forgiving, because notice he said that he had a dream or something about going into the pearly gates.
Yeah, he did.
When people talk like that, they're all into their religious beliefs. And so one of the things these Black Christians always believe, most of them, is about forgiving their enemies.
Well, he even said he thought he would die in prison.
So,
I mean, which one is it? And now they didn't forgive him. They said he's going to be guilty. He'll die guilty. He is guilty. And then afterwards, you didn't see this video, but they praised God after it. In the video that I have on a local station, they were outside the courtroom saying, praise God.
Yeah, I think I saw that when they walked right out, the cameras were there. Yeah.
Right. After all that they did to this man, they know he didn't get a fair trial. And mind you, these are people who claim to believe in God. They claim in the same God, believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, their Lord Jesus Christ. But if you truly believe that, then you should just be forgiving of this man. If he did do anything, but there was no evidence to convict him. They could have exonerated him. His trial only lasted, they convicted him in only a day.
And the fact that they went to trial within 60 days, or they had the whole trial was over 60 days. Where was the time for a thorough investigation to even be conducted? There wasn't, because that was too quickly. There's investigations that last way longer than that, and they had the trial in that span of time. But Gavin, can you tell us about the details at the beginning of the case? Like, what brought this all out? When these two 14-year-olds girls came forward and said this Black man raped them. Tell us some background on that.
Well, my understanding of the case from my background is that they stated, from what I was looking at, and you can actually look at the information on about Vincent, is that they reported to family that they had been raped by a Black man 2 weeks before on May 9th. So when they reported this, it was on May 22nd, 1977. And when they gave the statements to the police, they claimed that they, along with their cousin, Keith Labard, who was revealed to be 20 at the time, had encountered a Black man at this 7-Eleven in Marksville. They gave him a ride and he produced a knife and forced all three to get into the trunk of the car. I'm reading the facts here. So after driving to an isolated location, he took out each twin and raped them separately. Then returned the three to town and set them free at the cemetery. Now, something doesn't sit. Now, I don't know why it would take them 2 weeks. Let's take the twins out of it. Let's look at the 18-year-old cousin who was revealed. Now it's revealed he's 20 years old, actually, at that time. If he was set free with his cousins, why then, when they were released at the cemetery, didn't they report it to the police? He should have, at least.
Right.
Now I understand trauma, but it was 2 weeks from May 9th. You got kidnapped, and on May 22nd, Karen and Sharon said we were raped. So then, what they said. Now this is key, and I'm reading this here. The twins said that their attacker threatened them to have his buddies come after them if they told anyone. At the time of the statements that they gave to the police, the twins did not describe or identify their attacker, saying, quote, that all blacks look alike.
No,
what they actually say was all blacks looks alike. So the police department, Overlay Parish Police, picked up Vincent Simmons the next day on May 23rd in Marksville where he was walking. He had been back about a week after spending several years in Texas. At the police station, they placed him in a lineup of 7 men, including 1 white man. So that's prejudicial right there, because if they said it was a black person, why would you put him in a lineup with the white man?
That's real crazy. Who does that?
Right. And Simmons, now here's the key. He was positioned in the center of the group, and he was the only one that was handcuffed.
Okay. Clearly sabotage.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So it says further, he was taken into they identify him from that group, although they say that the police 3 officers do not agree among themselves as to whether Simmons was in handcuffs in the lineup or photographed in handcuffs with the group at a different time. But he was taken to the interrogation room, and he refused to make a statement about the purported crimes, and he was manhandled by one of the officers while still handcuffed, pushed down, and kicked while on the floor. He struggled to his feet and was shot in the chest by Deputy Robert Laborde. Now, I wonder if he's related to this same Laborde, Keith Laborde. Just seeing that name, but it doesn't mention it here. It says he went to the hospital and was taken back to the police station after some time for some treatment. So what you have there, Queen, there's something called 14th Amendment violations. Of course, the 14th Amendment gives you equal protection under the law. We also know it was what gave black citizenship, but it was expanded in recent Supreme Court hearings and so forth that you cannot detain a person without the person's life, liberty, or property without due process. The 5th Amendment deals with federal government in the due process statute, but also the 14th is how it applies to the states. So if this officer shot this man, they shot him while he was handcuffed, they should have been charged for attempted murder. And also, any evidence that came out of that should never have been included at the trial. So even if he confessed to it, today's date, if any attorney, it could be a public, I'm a public defender myself, but from a public defender or a private attorney, even a rookie attorney would know that this was unacceptable and could not be admissible in court. So the police version of events is that Simmons, still in handcuffs, disarmed. Now, this is what they say. He disarmed Officer Melvin Villamaret and tried to fire at Laborde, but was unable to release the safety. Simmons allegedly shouted, "You will never take me alive," before Laborde shot him in the chest, inches from his heart. But Simmons was never charged for this alleged attack. So, they're lying.
Right.
They would have added more charges on from either aggravated flight or attempted murder of a police officer.
Wow, this is also nefarious that it's laughable, these lies they told. Amazing. Okay, and so here's another thing too about their story, right? Someone said in the chat something about their mother found the twins' underwear and then they lied or whatever. But here's another thing I want to say. When they're claiming that they were all put into the trunk and then taken off somewhere and then one by one he raped them, here's the thing. Just from all of the true crime research that I studied in college and all that stuff, whatever, You know, when people abduct people, they very seldom abduct more than one person at a time when it's a lone abductor. Okay, that's for one. But for two, if his intentions were to rape the twins, why would he need their cousin? Because usually in cases like that, the male would be murdered because they are, you know, at risk of overpowering or fight back or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So usually the perpetrator would kill that person and take the twins. So that all just sounds made up, is what I'm saying.
It could have been the cousin doing this.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And that they're covering for him.
Protect him by saying, but this black man did it. That's alleged. I'm only going to say alleged for legal purposes, but that's what this sounds like. Because I don't know a cousin why he wouldn't say anything to police if he got mugged and he's locked in the trunk and he lets them go, and he doesn't tell the police for 2 weeks.
And he was 20. He was a grown man at the time.
Right. And they didn't find any results that were linked to Mr. Simmons. And this is very similar to another case that happened. We had a gentleman who was a prosecutor, actually, out in Shreveport, Louisiana, who was asking the state Supreme Court, a Cato Parish prosecutor, who asked the state Supreme Court for disbarment. Now, that was a death row case. And what happened was that I'm trying to find it. I apologize. I thought it was here. But he asked the state Supreme Court to be disbarred. I'm trying to find his name. That's why I'm...
Okay, take your time.
I had it up there.
And there was a documentary about this story also. I just saw it today. I didn't get to watch it, but I'm saying I saw that it was a documentary made about it today.
About Mr. Simmons?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I saw that when I was doing some research.
Yeah, there is. I mean, he has his own Facebook page. I mean, Wikipedia page that they talk about it. I can't find his name, the name of this officer, but I distinctly remembered. And I think
the documentary, Gavin, is called Shadow of Doubt.
Okay. That is it. All right.
LaMarcus, you are so nefarious. Talking about, I can't wait for the documentary of Bastard Biden. So likely, as some people in the chat are saying, and I agree, is that allegedly, or I'm not even going to say allegedly, I'm going to say, in my opinion, they were likely messing around with their cousin. And then, for whatever reason, the cousin likely put them up to telling that lie and saying a black man did it. Because it is a known fact that many of these Karens and Kates back in the day, and even still in present time, they will go out here and do things and be promiscuous and all types of stuff, and then love to lie and act like a black person did it. And sometimes they just do it just for the hell of it, but sometimes they do it so that the real person that or person or people that they're messing around with aren't exposed.
Right. So what we have here is, I'm looking here now, this is another case, but this is what they do too, Queen. And it's very important to point this out. There were 11 whites and 1 black juror on that case. Now, in Cato Parish, which is where Shreveport is, it's not far from the Dallas area. You can go I-20 and hit to Dallas right there. The attack in 2013, Rodriguez Crawford, I'm mispronouncing it. Rodriguez Crawford was a young black man who was convicted and sentenced to death that year for suffocating his 1-year-old son. His death sentence was seen as a pattern in the parish, which has the highest rate of death penalty sentencing in the nation. The prosecutor in this case said the penalty was needed for society's revenge. But what happened is that The conviction greatly depended upon the findings of a disputed pathology report. After sentencing, Crawford was held on death row, the second youngest man there. He was imprisoned at Angola, and new medical evidence introduced in 2014 on appeal of the case disputed the findings of the prosecutor's witness. In 2016, the conviction was overturned by the Louisiana State Supreme Court on appeal due to findings of prosecutorial misconduct in jury selection. And in 2017, April of 2017, the Cato Parish District Attorney's Office dismissed all charges against Crawford. He was exonerated. So he was charged with murdering his own child. And a district attorney purposefully kept African Americans on the jury. He used 5 of 7 peremptory challenges to dismiss Black jurors. That prosecutor's name was Dale Cox. And the Supreme Court found that he, and this is what they do. So this is not the first time this has happened. I can think of countless others probably that are there. Mr. Simmons, he's one of the lucky ones. So is this man, Mr. Crawford. There was another man. I'm trying to find who the actual prosecutor was, but this other man who, and I believe he passed away, who was on death row that was exonerated, the district attorney up there, it might have been the same one. Probably not. He used racism to keep Blacks off the jury. You had a Calcasieu Parish prosecutor. I'm looking at this now. Jason Brown was accused of illegal tactics to win at least one case before arriving in Calcasieu Parish, where that's in Lake Charles, where he was terminated over alleged dishonesty in a continuance motion. Now the appeal has learned that he had segregation error signs in an art studio he owned. He was fired after defense attorneys alleged that he withheld exculpatory evidence in the second-degree murder of Joey Julian. The murder trial of Joey Julian. Prosecutors alleged that Julian, a Baton Rouge resident, fatally shot 38-year-old Ernest Samuel Miller in downtown Lake Charles. That's where Calcasieu Parish is. So he was fired following his suspension by the DA, John DeRosier, for filing a motion to continue in the Julian case without informing a judge that defense attorneys were opposed to it. But you see, this is the type of bullshit, excuse my French, that we go through.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I don't know if you want to see the article that I'm reading from, but y'all look up Dale Cox, a prosecutor out of Cato Parish, CADDO. But I'm just looking at these articles there on Google about it, and you can just see it.
So now, during the trial of Mr. Simmons, who all testified? Just the twins? Did their cousin testify?
Okay, so at the trial, it says that he was tried before. He had a court-appointed attorney. One of the assistant DAs to Knoll was his wife, Jeanette Knoll. Jeanette Knoll was elected in 1982 as a state circuit court judge and on the state Supreme Court. Now, who is Knoll? Knoll, according to the information I had here, hold on. One of the assistant DAs to Knoll was his wife. So the DA in the trial was Eddie Knoll. So his wife was his assistant. Now, they had no physical evidence from the car that was presented in Simmons' case to tie him to the rapes. No physical evidence to prove that the rapes had occurred. The case was based only on based on testimony from the cousin Laborde, and the twins. His defense presented several alibi witnesses who said that Simmons was with them at a local bar the night the rapes had occurred. Noel attacked the credibility of these witnesses in front of the jury, suggesting that prior minor crimes of the witnesses, such as disturbing the peace, littering, parking fines.
No, are you serious?
Should affect their credibility.
So
yes.
That makes them liars? Wow.
Now, the defense attorney, Brule, never questioned the state's witnesses regarding their statements. He failed to note the numerous discrepancies between the twins and their cousins' police interviews, preliminary examinations, and testimony at trial. For example, when the twins and Keith Laborde gave their initial statements to the police, they said that they did not know their attacker's identity and said that all blacks look alike. They made no mention of a weapon. At the trial, each claimed they knew their attacker by name, saying that he had introduced themselves as Simmons before the attack.
Okay,
said,
so you're going to tell your victims who you are and speak to them in a whole introduction? Oh my goodness, this is so ridiculous. Like I said, it would be laughable if the man had not spent 44 years in prison.
Yeah. Now listen. Now here's the other part. The girl said that Simmons threatened them with a gun and knife, and Laborde was identified as being 18 in the police statements, but he was 20 and married. He was also a member of the Marine Corps. During his closing argument, the prosecutor asked the jury to imagine themselves in the place of the victims of the crime. Now, this is worthy of an objection. But his attorney failed to object. So there could have been also ineffective assistance of counsel with this. Simmons was convicted of 2 counts of attempted aggravated rape, 1 for each twin, based off those testimonies. So he was sentenced to 50 years in prison on each count, and that was a total of 100 years. So that means if he was doing 100 years in prison, I don't think that they would be running this concurrently. When you run something concurrently, Queen, it means it's at the same time. If it's consecutive, that means you got to go back to back. That's double punishment.
Right. Alana said, right. So he said, my name is blah, and I will be your rapist tonight.
So you see why it's very important.
Crazy.
I want to stress this, why it's important, why we need to serve on juries.
Yes, absolutely.
If anything, I'm not going to tell you about go out and vote because Martin Luther King would do it. No, I ain't doing that. But be registered at least to vote so that when you get a notice in the mail to show up for jury duty, you do it. You might learn something. And situations like this, although it's not all on people who don't serve. Obviously, if they're using peremptory challenges to keep blacks off, that's something that needs to be brought up. They did that in the Ahmaud Arbery case too. The defense attorneys were purposely trying to exclude blacks from that jury. So there's a reason why they do these things.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So they had various stories that they all told during the police interview, and the prosecutor didn't even challenge that or bring it up. The prosecutor was clearly on code with them.
Right. LaMarcus, I didn't say vote. I said register to vote. Be on the register's roll so that you can serve on jury duty. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying go vote Democrat. I don't buy that. But if you get an opportunity to serve on a jury pool, they look at the voter's roll, and that's why they send the jury cards. That's what I'm saying. But I'm sorry, Queen. Yeah. What you were saying, they only relied on the testimony. Yeah. So there's no physical evidence. There's no proof, nothing that links him to this crime other than their word.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Just because they said so.
Kind of like, doesn't that reminds me of somebody, doesn't it?
Yeah, with Bill Cosby.
Oh yeah.
They had no DNA evidence. They had no fingerprints. They had nothing except they said so. And that would never ride if it were the roles were reversed and it was a black woman saying this against some powerful white man, or, you know, just even a regular average Joe like Vincent Simmons. That would just not ride. You would have to absolutely prove this. So it's just also crazy. And that definitely, another thing is this. So this happened in the 70s. So we know they didn't have DNA testing back then, but they saved the evidence back then, or they would have. And then so for further future references, when they had DNA testing, why didn't they go back and look at that evidence?
Well, they had medical reports back then. But they didn't have the DNA that they had at that time. But it's kind of like what you heard in the video. The judges would throw his challenges out. They kept throwing it out all the time. They would throw it out. You're trying to appeal this? No, we're not going to hear this again. I'm just throwing it out. I'm dismissing it. You got to have judges there that are willing to listen. In part that they're going to get that you're going to listen to the facts and evidence. You pray that will be unbiased and impartial rather, to the parties, and just listen to what they have to say. And unfortunately, he did not get that. He had the right judge this time, this Judge Bennett. And when I was listening to the report, it was his dad who was the judge who didn't want to hear his appeal in the first place, his motion for a trial. So this one had an open mind. I don't know Judge William Bennett. I did some information on him. He was a graduate of Loyola, and he's a Democrat. Not saying that the Democrats are better than the Republicans. I don't believe that, but because I think a lot of them are worse. But at least he had an open mind, and I'll give him credit for that. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad he did. Now the thing is, in order for him to get any type of compensation or restitution, then he's going to have to prove that he was actually innocent. So then his attorneys should be going to get that evidence and having it tested.
Sure.
Because if they were able to do that, do you think he would actually have to go through a whole trial again to prove it? He's innocent, or could they just get the DNA to prove it so he could get his money or get some type of
that would be a civil matter. So he does not have to stand trial in a criminal proceeding again.
Okay.
He would have to, what he's going to have to allege, Queen, is a 1983 civil rights violation and show that the state, I mean, clearly by just reading this stuff that the police officers did, if they shot him while he was handcuffed, they didn't charge him for it. To me, that's very suspicious. That they tried to force a confession out of him, more than likely, and he refused. So they beat him up. They did everything that they could. I question also, if you saw, one of the officers was named Laborde. So I have a question: was he related to the witness? Because that's very important. So he would have to prove his innocence. I mean, he proved that he was not guilty. Basically, if you're alleging in 1983, it's a civil rights violation. If you're not, typically, prosecutors have what's called immunity, as do judges. So even if they say something that's bad, you can't just go and sue them, because they basically have open reign of their court prosecutors as well. However, there is something called prosecutorial misconduct. And if they found that a prosecutor, or malicious prosecution, rather, I should say, that's the civil charge. If they can prove their innocence, they can prove that the DA there was a proceeding that the district attorney wrongfully and willingly was malicious in his prosecution, went after you, they could be sued. That's what I said even with Cosby, because with Bill Cosby, there are emails that supposedly show that Kevin Steele knew that he had to have known that this agreement with Bruce Castor, his predecessor, was binding.
Yes, he knew that. He absolutely
had to have known that. And if he knew it was binding, and he says in an email, yes, I meant to bind the entire state, he should not, the entire DA's office, he should not have gone after and prosecuted that case, which is why he needs to be disbarred immediately.
Absolutely.
He needs to be disbarred. He needs to be sued. And that judge, he's the worst, Stephen T. O'Neill, he's the worst. He needs to be removed from the bench. And I'll go on record in saying that because he had a circus. But this is the stuff I tell you. They don't report everything. And so to get back on point, though, I would bring a civil rights violation. If he could do anything, he would have to do a civil rights violation. But judging by the fact of this Supreme Court that we have, even if he's found like they did with Mr. John Thompson, if Uncle Clarence is still there by the time Mr. Simmons sues, I can only imagine he won't come out empty-handed. Sadly.
Right.
So no weapon. So let's look at this. There's no murder. There's no weapon. They didn't have a gun or knife. He had alibis. Louisiana, if you're a defendant, you can raise alibi witnesses. They brought in evidence of prior crimes referring to littering and parking tickets, parking violations. His defense witnesses, and I don't see any information here, but I would have strenuously objected to that, because that in of itself, that doesn't show that a witness is lying or is that their credibility. You can attack a witness's credibility if you want on some convictions, but it just depends on what they are. If it's petty stuff, not so much. But if you're talking about, for instance, somebody that was found guilty of perjury or filing a false police report,
right,
or murder, some things like that, okay, I could probably go with.
But those little petty things, that's absolutely nothing to take.
Parking tickets, really? Parking?
Yeah, that's the real.
Even the mayors get parking tickets. The city council people get parking tickets. But yeah, but I hope he gets compensated.
I hope he does too, but it's probably unlikely. It's probably highly unlikely. And I also think that is likely one of the reasons those judges didn't want to allow his appeals to go through. I don't think they want another trial, because if you just look at the evidence, it's so obvious that that trial was tainted and that, wasn't conducted the right way. It was all kinds of stuff going on. I feel like that also, because they never want to pay these people after they have you in prison for decades. They don't want to pay that money, millions of dollars. They didn't want to pay the Central Park 5, really.
Oh, if they had another trial, then he would have been exonerated.
Right.
He would have been, and in today's court setting, I mean, even with whites on the jury, I think there were some who would even say, yeah, he didn't get a fair trial.
Exactly.
There's not enough information. So, I'm sad. It's sad that this happens, and like I said again, he's not alone in it, but he's one of the few that got lucky, at least to be on the outside, although he's an elderly man. At this point in Louisiana, let me make this point: we are the prison capital of the world, not the United States, the world. Angola, and this, Queen, I've told you this before, is basically a farm.
Yeah.
Angola is a farm out in West Feliciana Parish, that they have these men in, that they work. And, some of them, unfortunately, I can only think of the ones who are innocent that sit in there and die. Master P's brother, I believe, is in the process of getting a new trial because they say one of the eyewitnesses recanted and said he was forced by police to give a different story. So
I believe it.
Yeah. So I mean, everything is about, we go based off the evidence, and if there's no evidence to prove something, then I can't hold this person accountable. That's what reasonable doubt is. That's what being on a jury, importance of the jury is. The judge gives the instructions. Now they may, see murder, boy. See murder.
Yeah, see murder.
Now that's not if you're trying to appeal your murder case, having the name See Murder is probably not the best thing, not the best rapper name I want, but
clearly.
Yeah.
Right, clearly. Now,
Little Murder. I'm tired of all these rappers with these dumbass names. Excuse me.
Now, Angola was a plantation, Angola plantation. And don't the prisoners down there still pick cotton? Another thing about that prison is it reminds me of the thing of how it was on the movie Life, how they were working at the governor's mansion. They literally allow the prisoners in Angola to do that. Some of them actually are, they're able to go and work at the governor's mansions to do the groundskeeping and all that stuff. I did a bunch of research on that like 5 or 6 years ago because I talked about it on Facebook. And I was like, they allow them to do this, but you can't be someone who's in prison for murder, and serious crimes like that. It depends on what crime you did, but they're allowed to leave the prison and go work for the governor and stuff like that. I think that's real crazy.
That does happen, yeah. Especially if they, as you saw in Life, if they get older, not threatening anymore, yeah, they'll let them do that. That does happen, yeah. Angola's a farm, so they pick a bunch of things. There's a bunch of things that they've done in there. And remember I think Angola had, I can't think of the 3 Black Panthers that they had in there. What was their name for them? Somebody probably will know in the chat. But yeah, it's essentially it's a giant farm. And it was named, very interesting, it was named for the African country. That's where many slaves were brought from to Louisiana.
Wow.
So that's where it gets its name from. And it was owned by, it's 18,000 acres of land the prison sits on that was known before the Civil War as the Angola Plantations. It was owned by Isaac Franklin. So yeah, it's a farm. They pick crops include cabbage, corn, cotton, strawberries, okra, onions, peppers, soybeans, squash, tomatoes, and wheat. They resumed growing sugarcane. Now that was a practice that stopped in the 70s, but yeah, they do sugarcane crops there.
Yeah, and they even kept the name because they obviously run it like a plantation. Nicole says he's more than likely will get them to go fund me like they did the older brother here in Missouri. They raised a couple of million in no time. Yeah, now that's the thing too. Hopefully he'll get some type of money from GoFundMe. They should definitely put up a GoFundMe for him so people can donate.
Yeah.
What? Now hold on. That's a nefarious name, Batty, that you have in the chats. Okay. And then talk about sugarcane feed you tripe. I guess they're trying to say that in a Jamaican accent. LaMarcus says, they treated my daddy like shite for stealing something out of a grocery store. F Angola. Wow. Oh my goodness, the chat is nefarious. So with that all being said, now listen, when those twins, Sharon and Karen, when they said they were going to stand down, they're acting like they're doing him a favor. Like, oh, but he was guilty then, he's guilty now, he's going to die guilty. At the end of the day, they don't want to go back through they don't want to go through a trial again themselves. They were sitting there telling those lies and got away with it back then, but those lies are not going to stick today if they were to go back to trial and testify and tell that same ridiculous story. So that's one of the reasons they don't want to go back to trial. They don't, I think that if they thought they could get him convicted again, that they would absolutely go through with the trial just for clout and publicity, because that's what it looks to me like they were trying to do. It's just trying to get publicity. All out there standing in front of the courthouse, throwing their arms up to the sky and all that. It's just all doing the most. Knowing good and well that they lied. They just don't want the truth to come out. That's what that is.
Yeah, well, like I said, just looking at that, listening to what happened, to him. Now, I finally found, that seems like they didn't have much of a case. Now, Queen, if you could, I found the case that I was referring to earlier when I was talking about the Louisiana inmate who he died not too long ago from cancer after he was released, but his name was Glenn Ford, and the district attorney or ADA Marty Stroud. This is him here. He was the lead prosecutor in his murder trial, and he purposely admitted that he tried to get blacks off the jury. Now, if I could share it with you, now, hold on, let me share the video with y'all. Yeah, this is it here. So this is, please put that copyright disclaimer up, guys. Let's see. All right, here it is here.
And
then you got to
very
share,
good
hit the
at it.
share button.
Therefore, why should we have any belief that they could design a system that is fair?
Oh, Queen, can you share the video?
Oh, I thought I was waiting on you to share it. Okay.
That's Marty Stroud.
I don't think a human being we humans have the capacity to tinker with the machinery of death, and that's a quotation from Justice Stevens in the dissenting opinion several years ago. And therefore we should abolish it.
Something about abolishing the death penalty.
Bottom line, it's state-assisted revenge, and that's not justice. I think when you try a capital case, it should be on the prosecutor's shoulder to uncover every stone, rock that's out there, to follow up on leads. I believe my failure in that case was that I didn't follow up, that I should have done more, that I had an obligation to do more, that we as prosecutors represent the state of Louisiana. We're there to ensure that the fairness of the process. And how can you give any credit to a verdict that was obtained when Mr. Ford was represented by two attorneys who were very good attorneys, who had never tried a jury case, much less a criminal case, and they're sitting there trying their best to represent a man who is indigent and can't afford counsel. Looking back on it, that in and of itself should have put a signal to my dense brain that it was wrong. People are out to win it, whatever the cost. They don't really care about the victim. They don't care about this or that. They care about their record. And back when I was in my early 30s, I was caught up in that insanity, that the end justified the means, and that we didn't try people who were innocent. If anybody claimed they were innocent, it was bogus. And that's the wrong philosophy to have. A prosecutor is supposed to be an officer of the court, and their primary interest should be to ensure that both sides receive a fair trial. One loss percentage should not enter into the equation. And I think this letter was an effort to let everybody know how the realities of what happens as a result of a wrongful conviction, the lives it literally destroys. Because it's not just the defendant. I mean, obviously he is the one that had to do the time, but you've got the issue of the jury and how they feel. The victim's family, who thought they had closure. The court. And that case was there as a result of an indictment brought by our office. And I was one of the prosecutors. I don't plan on going on any speaking tour or writing any books or anything like that. I just felt that my position, what I have gone through, should be shared with others. I understand the reality of the politics around here, and I don't expect the death penalty to be abolished anytime soon in this state. But I think
I'm tired of the mansplaining here, Queen. If you don't mind, I'll stop it.
Oh, yes, please do, because I've had enough of him with all the mail slang.
But I do want to play, if I could, one last video in regards to that one caveat.
Okay, go ahead.
Everybody should see. Now, sadly, Mr. Ford passed away from lung cancer in 2015, but he actually had a face-to-face with this man on his deathbed, and you should watch what he has to say to him.
Okay.
On the night of the meeting, we picked up Marty Stroud at the airport in New Orleans and walked him to Glenn's front door.
Mr. Ford.
Marty, how you doing?
How are you?
Doing all right.
And I've thought about this for a long, long time. I want you to know that I am very sorry. And I wish it's a stain on me that will be with me until I go to my grave. And I wasn't a very good person at all. So I apologize for that.
Right, but then it still cost me 31 years of my life and debt, nothing at the end but death, because they give me from 6 to 8 months to live.
There's nothing to say sufficient to give you those 30 years back. But I have to tell you that I've learned a lot about myself in the next 30 years. And even though this is the same person or same body, I would like to think that I've changed. And I've learned a lot from you. I've learned watching you on television that I was thinking, man, if it had been me in there for 30 years, I'd be angry and surly.
Marty Stroud says he came here to say his piece, but did not expect anything in return.
It happened. It happened. And so I can't forgive you. I really am. I really am.
I understand.
Okay.
I do, and I wish you well, and I wish you nothing but the best.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And may God bless you.
You too.
You take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
All right. You too.
As Glenn Ford watches the man who helped steal 30 years of his life walk out the door, his caretakers gather around him, and the emotion seems to rush in.
Oh.
For Nightline, this is Dan Harris.
In New Orleans.
It's been said no lie can live forever, but hurt can. Our thanks to the team.
Let me tell you something. First of all, I wouldn't even have given him the pleasure of coming to speak to me because he didn't do that for the man he hurt. He did that for himself, for his own peace of mind. That's why he did that. He's old now, right? And he wants to get through the pearly gates. He's trying to get himself right. That's all he's trying to do. Because if you pay attention, a lot of these people do nefarious things, and then on their deathbed, they want to give deathbed confessions. Why do you think people do that? Because they want to try to get in the pearly gates that they believe in. Sadly, there's no pearly gates for any of us to walk through at the end. All right, it isn't. But at the end of the day, that's why that was. That was for his own peace of mind. So I would not even have met with him, definitely wouldn't have had him come to my house, and I would have never, under any circumstances, shook his hand. And then he's sitting there talking, but I'm sorry. Why is it that these nefarious devils who do these racist things think that we want or need their apology? They feel like they're doing us some type of service by apologizing. Now, some Negroes may want their apologies, but I don't. I have no use for it. After you've done the damage, there's nothing that you can say to go back and rectify what you did. All right? Unless you're going to hashtag cut those checks for reparations for my people. Keep it pushing. Okay, go ahead, Gavin.
He got denied money, by the way, from the state.
No surprise there.
He got denied money, so he was not compensated for being wrongfully convicted, although sadly he would not live too long to even if he had gotten something to enjoy it, or at least for his family. If he had relatives that were around, they could have gotten it. But yeah, this was but I don't have much more to say, Queen, except this is something that has happened continuously to our people, to Black men, people who do not have the abilities to afford legal counsel. Some of their counsels, is not to say that all of them are like that, because obviously it's not, but some leave them hang them out to dry, or don't go take extra steps that they should, that's there that they know of. And I certainly, just looking at that, it broke my heart to see this man nearly dying, upset the way he was. But, like I said, he's one of the few lucky ones that have gotten off with this. And we look at our justice system now and what happened even yesterday with Dante Wright's killer getting less than 2 years in prison. I can only imagine if Kim Potter were Black and charged with manslaughter, I have a good feeling she would have gotten a full 15 years in prison.
And they would have charged her with murder, not manslaughter. And here, I believe, second-degree murder or something like that. But here's another thing too, Gavin. Dante's mother, who is Caucasian, told that woman in court that she does not forgive her. And I was glad that she said that. But that's the difference between them and us, because Black people always up in there talking about they forgive them, even when the devils don't ask for their forgiveness.
Did you see her new picture?
That mugshot?
Yeah, she was smiling.
She was smiling. I saw that yesterday.
She was smiling. And this judge, we got to get on this judge. Judge Chu. This, you know what this reminds me of? What happened in Los Angeles when Sung Dong Kim shot Latasha Harlins in the back of her head over a bottle of orange juice, and the judge gave her a suspended sentence. That's exactly what that reminded me of. And now we had one asshole, excuse my French, but he got on Twitter saying he gets elected governor, he's going to commute the sentence.
Wow.
Excuse me? Yeah, this is what they're electing, so they're not hiding it.
No, they're not. They're not hiding it anymore like they used to. Absolutely. Absolutely. They're blatant with it now. I mean, just look at all the things they say and do. I mean, more so, they have really amped it up.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I know from a legal standpoint, especially at sentencing, you can use mitigating circumstances to try, if I was a criminal, I am, as a criminal defense attorney, You know, if I could get my client less than 2 years on a manslaughter, that's a victory. But this is someone who was trained, and this came up in the at the trial. She was trained in handling weapons. She had been on the force for over 20 years, so she knows the difference between a taser versus a pistol. The weight is different, the color is different. One is lighter than the other. So the fact that this judge considered cards, all the letters from her supporters, she didn't consider the family of Daunte Wright.
Because she didn't care about the family of Daunte Wright. Because we already know how people like Judge Chu feel about us Black people.
And then she was crying for her.
Yes. And then at the same time talking about she understands what the family's going through, has empathy. And I'm like, no, you have no empathy for them. That's why you're giving her this minuscule sentence. Yeah, it's all so crazy. Anyway, I did see that article with her sitting there grinning on her mugshot. And Dante's mother was very upset about that.
Yeah. So basically what's going to happen, she's going to do 24 months in prison. She's only going to do 57%, 2/3 of that, which is 57%, which means she's going to only get maybe a year and 18 months, but she's also getting credit for time served. So whatever time she's done in jail, this woman is only going to be in jail for like a year and 2 months at best.
She did like 2 months in jail. I think it was like 58 days.
Yeah, so that means she's gonna get credit for time served. So it's gonna run from that point, and yeah, she'll be out before Christmas, sadly.
It must be nice. Must be nice. And then all the little racist devils will likely donate money to her and this, that, and the third, and all that kind of foolishness.
I thought they already did.
Yeah.
They already were doing it, yeah, for her legal fees and stuff.
Right. I'm sure they have. You know how they get down. So just also nefarious. So anyway, with that all being said, we're going to get ready to wrap this up. You have any last words, comments, questions, or snide remarks, Gavin?
Snide remarks. I think I've gotten all the snide remarks out on this topic, but I'll be doing a live stream, I don't know, tonight with Brother Bernard. I think we have it for 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, which would be 8 Eastern, Brother King BJ. And I do a live stream tomorrow on Sundays. It's not set in stone, but you all can subscribe to Gavin Richard or GBoo2786. Those are the 2 YouTube channels, and where we talk about random topics. So I will be talking about this judge in particular. And I think the next thing, I'll have a video dropping on my review soon. I'm waiting for the perfect time for it on this We Believe Bill Cosby hit piece, this mockumentary that Camus Bell did. So be on the lookout for that.
Okay, not a mockumentary.
It's a mockumentary. Yeah, it was a disgrace.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody here has watched it, but it was arguably one of the most one-sided pieces of work I have ever seen. And they used, I'll just say this, they used unsubstantiated allegations to try, like we were talking about with Mr. Simmons. They did this with Dr. Cosby, to say that this man was guilty of rape. They even used episodes of the Cosby Show to prove that he was doing some nefarious stuff, like the barbecue episode. They even had that in there. Or even the fact that, wait a minute, he was an OBGYN. Wow.
Oh my God. So ridiculous. So ridiculous. Anyway, with that all being said, everyone, please be sure to like and share the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Click the notification bell. Click the word all so that you're notified each time the Queen goes live. Don't forget to follow Gavin's channel. The link is in the chat. And also, make sure you Follow me on Instagram at QueenAhmadiyyah. You can follow the Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur fan page, and you can follow me on Twitter at DGoddess27. Okay, everyone have a blessed and lovely day. Shout out to Gavin. Thank you, Gavin, for coming in here and blessing us with your legal expertise and enlightening us on this case. Okay, and, everyone enjoy your day. Yes. Okay, everyone enjoy your day, and I will talk to you all again soon.
Peace. Peace and God bless. Thank you, Judah Queen Lamarcus, who is my New Orleans brother. Judah Queen, I haven't seen you on my channel lately. All right, you gotta come back. All right, thank you, Queen.
All right, you're welcome. Peace out.
All right, peace.